So good morning and welcome. My name is Glenn Montgomery and I'm the Executive Director of Vision Action Network and your host for this morning's Washington County Thrives Quarterly Gathering. We have been convening Thrives as a collaborative for technically over 10 years. So I don't think it was dubbed Washington County Thrives until about 2012. But the gathering, for those of you who are new to this collaborative, back in the recession of 2008, when providers and the public sector, community-based organizations were all struggling to figure out how to best serve people in economic crisis, they asked VAN, along with Community Action, to co-convene organizations and to just figure out, how can we work together better? And so those conversations led to an ongoing dialogue that once the recovery took place, the folks that were gathering on a regular basis asked the question, how can we be more strategic about working together? And it was at that time, about 2012, that they became Washington County Thrives, and they began developing priorities. And when I came on board in 2015, those priorities were identified as housing and supportive services, workforce training, and early learning development. And we have since refined or expanded that third focus area to early learning and youth enrichment, to include a broader base of children and up to young adults. So we have gathered sometimes monthly, and now quarterly. It has depended upon our activities and how to be most effective in working together. And for those who have been around for a while, we spent a considerable amount of time working in the housing sector. And back in 2016 and 17, we were very involved in trying to help advocate for what is now the Affordable Housing Bond. And then on the heels of that came the Housing Supportive Services tax measure that we supported and have now seen the benefits of that in the implementation phase. So we have begun to expand our purview of the things we want to work on beyond the housing piece. And last meeting during our quarterly gathering, we proposed focusing on the behavioral health sector. And those who were gathered at that meeting said, that sounds like a good idea. And in fact, we were bridging the behavioral health and kind of that supportive services piece of housing along with workforce training. Because we're now working with providers to help shore up their workforce. So that's a little bit of a background and some context for new folks in this collaborative here, and a preview of what we're going to talk about in this meeting today. But before we go any further, what I would like to do, as is our tradition, to give people an opportunity in the lightning round announcements to have 30 seconds, and that can go by pretty quickly, more quickly than you think once you start talking, because I've been talking now for 5 minutes. But a chance to share an announcement with the group here about something your organization might be working on, a need you might have, a resource you might be able to offer that you think is of interest to this group. And we do it in I will call on someone. You can share or you can say, pass, I don't have anything today. But if you've got something, just feel free to introduce yourself, and then you get to select the next person. And it'll get harder as we go on because we'll have to kind of keep track of who's gone and who hasn't. I'm going to just begin with Molly Griggs. You are the first contestant.
Well, I'm Molly Griggs, and I work with the Mental Health and Addiction Association of Oregon, and I am new in the role of Washington County Peer Delivered Services Coordinator, and I am really excited to be here, and I am going to go ahead and call on Adrian.
Hi, everyone. I am Molly's colleague, Adrian. I work with MHAO as well. And this is my second time attending this Thrives quarterly meeting. And I'm really excited, especially about the behavioral health focus, because that's really work that my organization is very involved in and work that's very important to me. So lovely to meet everyone. And I think I would think of Molly as an example of a great resource / technical assistance opportunity as her role really expands. It is a relatively new full-time role with us. So really excited to see how we all can collaborate. Thanks so much. And then I will call on Kelsey if they would like to go.
Hey everyone, Kelsey Hill, he, they pronouns. I work with Oregon Food Bank. I'm stepping into our strategist role for Washington County. It's my second week. First time at this meeting. One thing that we're working on that I don't know anything about, so don't ask me questions, is we're going to be doing, I think, our second year of collaborating with Centro Cultural on migrant farm worker outreach work, just providing food and resources, and I know we do that for a series of weeks. I think it starts next month, but I'm going to be learning more. But yeah, I'm really excited about that. Can I invite Cole?
Morning, everybody. Cole Merkel, he, him, his pronouns. I am the co-director of HereTogether, and you're about to hear a lot from me, so I will just pass it on to Carol. Good morning. It's good to see you.
Good morning. I wear a lot of different hats. I'm going to share a crazy dream. We give 1% for art when we give money to things. What if we gave 1% for prevention and 1% for workforce development in every single grant that went out? That's my dream for today. Also, I'm celebrating signatures for IP17. We will have safer gun controls, not just safety, but controls if we pass this in November. Katie, I'll call on Katie. Excuse me, I muted myself.
Hi, I'm Katie Riley with Washington County Kids. I use she, hers pronouns, and we have a couple of announcements. Actually, we have our annual gala coming up on August 4th in person at Montanore Vineyard. So that'll be a lot of fun. I'm going to put the link to Eventbrite, getting tickets in the chat in case you're interested. It'd be a lot of fun. The other thing is I am very proud to announce that we have partnered with Champions to be able to give about 170 scholarships to kids for this summer. And we're very excited to have kids get more care this summer. And I will choose Annie.
Hello, I'm Annie Herbert with Kaiser Permanente and also a member of the Vision Action Network board. And let's see, I can't see, I'm on the phone, so I can't see everything. Glenn, can you pick the next person?
I'm happy to. How about Bridget Brooks?
Well, hi, everybody. My name is Bridget Brooks. I'm a city councilor here in Tualatin. I use she, hers pronouns, and I am also practiced for a long time as a licensed clinical social worker and was educated as a community practice social worker. And I sit on the PAB board, and I worked on the LIP for Metro Housing Bond. And so I'm interested in this topic very much. And this is my first time attending the meeting, and it's great to see some familiar faces and some new faces, and excited to learn more about what's happening here. Thanks. Oh, and I will shoot. I don't know. I had technical difficulties jumping on, so I'm not exactly sure.
I'm happy to help. I'm happy to, I'll pick someone for you if you like, Bridget.
Did Kimberly go yet? Culbertson?
No.
Okay, Kimberly, you go.
Good guess.
All right.
We'll see if Kimberly is there. Kimberly, if you're talking and you're muted right now.
How about Rachel Duke?
There you go.
Hi, I'm on my phone. Sorry, I'm actually making breakfast for my kid. COVID, and I'm in charge of all food
Oh,
preparation.
yeah, I hear the spoon.
Um,
Thank you.
But good morning, everyone. And Rachel Duke, Community Partners for Affordable Housing. The Loyal Legion in Beaverton is going to have a fundraiser for us on August 3rd. Some percentage of their profits are going to go to one of our big end of the summer events, which is raising resources and creating backpacks for all of our kids. 25% of our residents are children. And so we want to make sure that they have what they need to start the school year off. So it's a kind of something we really are excited to do. We do it for all of our family properties, and we actually do it for another property that isn't ours, but is near ours, and there's a lot of kids there. So go have a beer or whatever at the Loyal Legion. And I'm just going to guess that Kelsey Hill, no, Kelsey did go. I don't actually have a clue as to who's gone. So you're up, Glenn.
You got it. I'll go with Sonara. Welcome, Sonara.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Sonara Blackwood. I'm with the Behavioral Health Division here at Washington County. And as far as exciting information to share, I think one thing that we've really been working on over the past couple of years, and Carol's a big part of this, is launching or relaunching a revamped version of the ACEs committee that's attached to the CHIP. And this is huge. We're really focused on implementing resources into our community to help mitigate the impact of ACEs. So we have we did some great strategic planning to get our feet on the ground, and we are aiming to launch the large committee this fall and get all those important voices, which includes everybody, youth, community, you name it. So we're really excited to see where this takes off. And yeah, so that's what I've been involved in as of recent. And then I recently just accepted a role as the system of care supervisor for the Behavioral Health Division. So I'll be rolling into that, if you will, relatively soon. So it sounds like we might be able to have some more touch points with this group as well. And I will, Cole, have you gone yet? Cole Merkel? Okay. All right. Let's see. Marnie, have you gone? Okay.
No, good morning, everyone. Marnie Kyle. I am one of the assistant county administrators with Washington County. Let's see, one thing that I'm very pleased with, our board authorized an additional year of our encampment program. And so that will give us time to continue to work with the encampments as we build more shelters and PSH so that we have more options, and work with our cities to develop the time, place, and manner so that we have clear guidance and support, and just more and more work with our outreach providers. So it's necessary time to work with the folks that are in these encampments and the neighborhoods surrounding them. So happy about that. And I will go to Kemp.
Thanks, Marnie. Good morning, everybody. Kemp Shuey, Executive Director here at Community Action, and I use he, him pronouns. Probably the big, I guess, the news item for us right now, we are actively hiring staff who isn't always hiring, but we're having a big push right now for, in particular, our Head Start programs. It's the summertime, so we're gearing up for fall. So I'll drop that link in the chat. We're also actively really pushing for enrolling children into our Head Start program as well. The last couple years, enrollment has been really challenging. So we're really hopeful with the vaccine being available for kids 5 and under. Hopefully we'll see improvement there. And then otherwise, I had a chance to meet with some of our staff recently, and just, I think as I think about Cole's presentation here in a little bit, it was exciting to hear from our staff this week about some stories. We had a family of 9 who we've been working with for about 5 months, who was able to finally get into some stable permanent housing, which was phenomenal to hear. We had another family from our shelter just at the beginning of this week get placed into a new home as well. So there's a lot of hard things out there in the world. I just want to share that there is also progress being made, at least on some of those individual levels. So those are grounding and important to keep in mind. And I will kick it over to Comey, because I think he's next up on my screen.
Good morning, everybody. I am Comey Calabo. I'm the housing director with Washington County. We administer the Supportive Housing Services Fund for the county, as well as the Continuum of Care, which is the federal funds that work on homeless programs way before the supportive housing measure passed. So pleased to be with you.
Let's go with Elise.
Who hasn't gone yet? I can't. Oh, Brian Schimel.
Okay, Brian. Maybe we'll do Brian.
Brian Schimel, Housing Director for Central Cotral. No updates, just curious to hear from Cole this morning, and I'll pass it on to Elise.
Hi, I'm Elise. I'm the resource manager with the housing department at Centro. I attended some meetings virtually with Brian when I first started back in September, so I'm glad to be back. And yeah, also no announcements, just excited to start the agenda.
Thank you, Elise. How about Bishop Germain? I think this might be your first visit.
Hello, everyone. I am Bishop Germain Williams. I am the presiding bishop of Mission Field Northwest, and I'm also the CEO of Quality Counseling and Life Coaching. And one of our new initiatives, actually, we're starting a program joining entrepreneurship with climate-based learning. So teaching about our environment, teaching about what that looks like to really take care of our planet, and really work on how we can actually educate college students as well as those who are graduating or going into universities, and how they can use their learning to contribute back into society, and really create and even generate more opportunities for their age groups to do more tree planting, more park recreation, taking care of a lot of the neighborhoods and a lot of those areas. And so we're working on that. That's actually the newest one. So it's a program that we just opened. We already have at least 14 applicants already. And so just be kind of having that in the back of your mind of what that looks like. So I'm glad to be here, and thank you so much.
We're happy to have you, Bishop. Thank you. I see Kimberly now on camera. So Kimberly, you want to do a quick check-in? Kimberly, you're muted.
There we go. Kimberly Culbertson, Habitat for Humanity Board Secretary. Just jumped off of our meeting where we just welcomed 5 new board members.
Wow.
So yes, some amazing people have decided to join our board. Really important though, our strategic plan is moving forward. We will be building about 70 houses in the next year. And we'll be working with additional partnerships with for-profit builders to build additional capacity. Really, our merger with Portland East has been really exceptionally fruitful. We're all expanding kind of geometrically with the things that entails, but it's very exciting to be furthering our mission. wealth by having people predominantly of color own their own homes and be able to pass that home on to their children. Thanks.
Thank you, Kimberly. And how about Karen James, and then Stephanie Caballero, and then Marcia?
Yes, good morning. I'm Karen James, and I serve on several advisory councils for behavioral health, including Washington County Advisory Council and Disability Rights Oregon Mental Health Council, and also serving on the Oregon Criminal Justice Commission Jail Healthcare Standard Committee. And just happy to be here. This is my second time being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Appreciate your engagement in all those activities. Stephanie, welcome.
Good morning, everyone. A pleasure to be here. Sorry, I was a few minutes late. My name is Stephanie Caballero. My pronouns are she, her, ella, and I'm with Virginia Garcia Memorial Health Center and Foundation, currently as Executive Director of our foundation. And the biggest exciting news I love to share is if anybody is looking for pediatric vaccination events, today we're having one from 11 to 6 at our Hillsborough 7th Avenue Hillsborough Clinic. Sorry, it's a newer clinic, so I'm still getting used to the two Hillsboroughs in there. It is right across from Tualatin OHSU Hillsborough Medical Center, formerly Tualatin Hospital, and it's accessible through the MAX, bus lines. There's parking. We will also have test kits available. This is in partnership with multiple organizations, including Latino Network and Washington County Public Health. So just wanted to make sure everybody knew about that. And then I do have a kind of announcement. I am currently part of the Bridge Plan task force for the state, and tomorrow there is a listening session at 5 p.m. and I would just invite you to please share with anybody and everybody that you serve who would like to make their public testimony in support of this plan and what is needed, what are the barriers that they're facing, and what are the musts that we as a task force and the state must think about as we roll out and begin to think about this design. So really encourage anybody to join, provide their testimony, and I will drop the details. Unfortunately, for my preference, the rollout wasn't as thorough, and so we don't really have a whole lot of tangibles to share with you, but I will drop the link because it is virtual, and hopefully you can share, or you as representatives of those you serve can also provide your testimony. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Stephanie. Marcia Hilly, welcome.
Morning, everyone. I'm Marcia Hilly. I'm the Executive Director at Sequoia. And one of the projects we've been working on is we can start this week. We are developing a new residential treatment home for adults with a severe mental illness. Much needed service that has been lacking in the community. And so we received the funding from the state and we're getting started. So excited about that. Thanks. And I have no idea who to pick, so.
Glenn, you're on mute.
It happens to the best of us. Bruce, would you like to share anything this morning?
Hi, good morning. Sure. Bruce Bartlett. I have been involved in the Washington County Community Participation Organization system for over 20 years now, the CPO system. I was just elected chair of the Committee for Citizen Involvement last night. I've tried to avoid that for a couple of years. The CCI is and CPO systems are land use focused, and so as things like the CAT Center I can't recall exactly what it stands for, but the assisted housing, we all run into land use issues as we're trying to do these human services functions. And so it's important to have land use advocates that support for use of these very critical functions in the face of neighborhood concern. I also serve on the Washington County Sheriff's the Enhanced Sheriff's Patrol District Advisory Committee. It's an unspeakable term, SPDAC. I undertook rewriting the committee's bylaws to include the diversity, equity, and inclusion language in it, and to expand a number of the aspects of it. And I have to say that I am very impressed at Sheriff Garrett's support for all of the community members. It's really a relief, frankly, that law enforcement people are as they are as involved in our community as Sheriff Garrett is. And I also am involved in the Food Action Network in Washington County as a representative of the Oregon State Extension Service. So there's a tremendous amount of activity there going on. And I served on the Behavioral Health Council for 30 years, just resigning to create some room for new blood. So all of this work is tremendously important to me, and I appreciate all of you being here.
Thank you, Bruce. And Carol, we are just doing a little lightning round. If you've got anything you'd like to share with the group, this is your opportunity. Well, if I'm going to perhaps come back to Carol, but I want to give my colleagues, Allie and Jenny, a chance if they have anything they'd like to share or at least introduce themselves. So Allie.
Hi, good morning. I am the Director of Development and Community Partnerships with VAN. And I guess what I wanted to share is I'm really excited about this behavioral health focus. I think it's much needed. I think we're all affected by it. And I really am looking forward to collaborating with each and every one of you. I'm glad to be here.
Thanks, Allie. Jenny?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jenny Moore. I'm the Director of Communications and Special Projects for VAN, and I would just echo what Allie said. Very excited about working on behavioral health workforce. And also, we have a community events calendar on the VAN website. I'm going to put the link in the chat, and we do take submissions for events, and then we highlight a few of those each month in our newsletter. So please take advantage of that opportunity to help promote your events. Thanks.
Thank you, Jenny. Any of the folks who recently arrived that have an announcement that you'd like to share? Just a brief announcement before we continue on with our agenda. Anyone that hasn't been chosen?
I would love to share something. I'm
Yes.
Roy Taylor, Executive Director of DVRC, and I apologize for being so late, but I want to share the traffic from Vancouver this morning was horrific. So if anybody else is coming that way, they'll probably be floating in at some time. It took me almost 2 hours to get here.
Oh my gosh.
That's ridiculous.
Yes, it is.
Anyway, it'll be a good day. I'm
Good
here.
to see you, Roy. Thank you for thanks for showing up. All right. Well, wow, lots going on. Great to hear the announcements. Anything you want to share in the chat room that might supplement your comments are welcome. And let's continue on with purpose here. I'd like to invite Cole to take the microphone and give us an update on supportive housing services. HereTogether has been a champion of the housing crisis here in the region. And Cole has been one of those lead advocates within the organization that has helped push these measures forward. So Cole, welcome. It's all yours. Floor is yours.
Thanks, Glenn. And can you just give me a quick time check? When do I need to be wrapped up for your final piece?
Yeah, I think, it's fine if you've got 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and we'll of course be flexible if people have questions. We are a fluid organization, so.
All right. Well, with that in mind, I'm going to dive in. So Cole Merkel, he, him, his pronouns. I'm the co-director of Here Together. As I think all of you know, Here Together is the organization that spearheaded and championed the supportive housing services measure. And we continue to advocate to ensure that the regional implementation reaches the level and the values that our coalition envisioned when we set it out 2 years ago, pre-pandemic. I think if you really look at our message frame, it really goes down to what Kemp said. There's progress happening every day. There's amazing work happening every single day. And so we both need to elevate and celebrate that work of providers, and we need to be focusing on the systemic changes necessary to create a regional response to homelessness for the first time. I know many of you are living and breathing this on a daily basis, especially on the ground. I know that Comey and Marnie are here, obviously from the county. So I'm going to take a really big regional approach and zero in on Washington County. But if there are points that I miss or things that you want to add, please feel free to chime in. But the first thing that I really want to do here is start us with a video to talk about the work that's been happening now to tackle our region's homeless crisis. You will see some familiar faces in this because we were really grateful that our friends at Centro helped us create this video. And the statistics in it are actually from about 6 months ago. So more work has happened since then.
Different this time that now we do have a lot more resources. This year, the county has trained us in a lot of aspects. We didn't know how to deal with mental health, but now there has been a lot of training. There has been a lot of time invested in us. I think that's what is making the difference.
They help me make sure that I'm on the right track to doing everything I need to do. Their help is just beyond anything anybody has ever done for us.
Now I have a job, a decent job where I can get my own place. Finally, the first time I could be somewhere and feel safe. All my stuff is safe, and I can go to sleep.
Tons of work already happening now, tons of results. I'll dive a little bit deeper into some of those updated numbers, but really let's celebrate the fact that we have so much ahead of us and already so much that we've done. So Here Together believes that we need all three, everything from shelter services and affordable housing to tackle and end our region's homeless crisis. And so that is really where our crux is, that we need to approach it with both near-term and permanent solutions simultaneously. Because when we look at the numbers statewide, 14,655 people experienced homelessness in 2020. That is an unconscionable number of folks, and that is one of the higher numbers in the US. So when we look and really zoom in on the Portland region, the most recent point in time count showed increases in the number of people experiencing homelessness, especially in Multnomah County. That being said, I think it's really important to remember and to note that Washington County's unsheltered homeless population actually went down in the point in time count for the first time in 3 years. In January 2022, there were 581 people who were sheltered out of this 808 and 227 who were unsheltered. That number in January 2021 was that 716, with 359 sheltered and 369 unsheltered. So as a result of the work and the investments that Washington County is making, we're actually seeing unsheltered homelessness decrease. Of course, we are seeing far too many communities of color experience homelessness in this region. And that is why one of the core tenets of the supportive housing services measure is to ensure equitable outcomes amongst communities of color. But as I said before, one of the main messages we want everybody to take away is that there is work happening now to provide a path forward for those sleeping outside. And so we need to also keep in mind that there's some major investments that have happened from the state. In the 2022 short session, the state invested millions and millions of dollars in homeless services. And I think the takeaway that we need to know from this is that we need an all hands on deck funding source to approach and tackle this decades in the making crisis. And it's really good to see that the state is stepping up. And right now is the time, even while we have these new funds coming in locally, for them to step on the gas and continue pushing it forward, because homelessness and our crisis did not get created overnight. And it's going to take an all hands on deck federal, state, and local response. So fortunately, we have the state response and we have the local response, and hopefully we'll see a more robust federal response soon. I want to really quickly just note how big of a game-changing investment supportive housing services is. In the first year of the program, from April of 2021 through June of 2022, $209.3 million was distributed to the counties. And of that, it was a slow ramp up. 110.3 million was collected in April 2022 alone. So it's been a slow ramp up, and I credit the Washington County Board of Commissioners for recognizing that this is how taxes work, that money would come in a bit more slowly and then really ramp up, and for taking out a bridge loan to ensure that programs could go forward unabated. That same strategy did not apply in Multnomah County, but the Clackamas County Commission took a completely different approach, which resulted in them taking their $24 million plan, moving it to a $10 million plan, and therefore delaying their implementation of the measure by more than a year. So truly hats off to the Washington County Commission for really taking this investment seriously and investing in the work that's happening now. This next slide, I want to just note, really shows where the total investments were before the measure passed and where they are now. So on the left, Washington County was spending $12.8 million on homeless services. They are projected to get $66.8 million in the next year. And we designed the measure to be additive, right? So these numbers should be adding together for a much larger investment of somewhere around $79.6 million. That is game changing for a system that needs it so desperately and so badly. One other thing I want to note is that Metro has actually revised this number up. They're expecting close to $225 million in the next year be distributed to the counties. And so they are working now to ensure that the counties have the resources to be able to do increased budget projections for what that first year will look like. So again, truly game-changing amounts of funding and a game-changing opportunity ahead of us if we can really harness it right now. And you know, I can put a lot of statistics on the screen. I can talk about all the ways and all the numbers that we've done, but at the end of the day, this is about people and those who are benefiting from the services and the case managers who are changing their lives by getting them into housing. Folks like Jenna, who was lost her housing after a domestic violence incident and was able to get rehoused because of the friends at Good Neighbor Center in Tigard, who helped stabilize her and move her into a new apartment. This is about people at the end of the day, and that's what's so exciting about this, because I know so many of you are on the ground. I remember in my days in direct service at Street Roots, when I thought if I just had a little bit more of a resource, a little bit more rent assistance, I could get this person into housing today. We're at the cusp of having those resources, and now we need to really capitalize on them. And the work has already happened in year one. At least 4,329 people have a safe place to sleep at night because of SHS just in the first 3 quarters of the year, and that's region-wide. We're still waiting for the end of year statistics and reports to see what the final numbers were for 2020, the 21-22 fiscal year. But we anticipate that 24 100 people would be permanently housed by the end of that additionally. In Washington County, major investments. 159 people were stabilized in permanent housing. And of that, 102 year-round shelter beds were added to the system. I think it's important to note with the shelter beds that these were in the Project Turnkey hotels that were acquired through state funding. So one thing that Washington County did that was awesome was that they were able to purchase, Comey, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think 2 hotels along with Central purchasing 1, which they were able to immediately turn into bridge shelter programming. And with that, are able to house 101 people safely every single night with the proper case management to get them into housing. On top of that, Washington County's investments in the winter shelter program ensured stability for that program and increased the number of beds. So truly remarkable and great investments that are having an impact on people right now. Multnomah County, especially in their first quarter, focused a lot of their time and effort and resources into eviction prevention. Right at the moment that the eviction moratoria were expiring, Multnomah County was able to keep close to 19,000 people housed, 2,500 of them through SHS funds. I think it's always important to remember that SHS is part of a much larger system. So in that earlier slide where I showed Multnomah County had previously been spending $90 million on homelessness and is now getting $90 million in SHS, those are now combined resources. And so can really help us leverage this opportunity. Multnomah County in the first 9 months stabilized 502 people into permanent housing and helped rehouse close to 300 people through rapid rehousing. In Clackamas, you know, the numbers I think are a little bit smaller given what I mentioned already about the board's approach to not start the program due to the delay in revenue. And so I think now, you know, as we continue to work with the provider community and with the county, we need to continue to advocate to make sure that their year-one goals are met and that they continue to build out the program into year 2 to really ensure that we are building a robust homeless response in Clackamas County, given the amazing and game-changing resources that they have on the ground. Just to zero in a little bit more on the work that's happened in Washington County, and y'all have done some great work at ensuring that this is in the public record for your quarterly report, so thank you for that. One thing that Washington County did that I think was absolutely phenomenal was put together a regional procurement qualification process. Basically, that has streamlined a lot of the paperwork and bureaucracy that many of the providers have often had to go through, where they would respond to individual RFPs one at a time to even be able to get qualified. And they would have to do it in different parts, in different counties if they wanted to. Washington County took the time to procure, I think, I can't even remember the full number, but a lot of providers region-wide who are procured or qualified to apply for procurements in any of the counties that fit 4 or 5 criteria. So truly game-changing just for the amount of streamlining that has done. Incredible job at doing housing case management services, contracting with 17 providers who are hiring 36 new housing case managers to help continue to move people from the streets or from shelter into housing. I mentioned already some of the shelter bed work that Washington County has done. Culturally specific grants of $50,000 each to Urban League, Centro, Urco, and Deanna Star. So really helping them build up their administrative capacity. Modernizing Community Connect to make it more streamlined, more trauma-informed, and a shorter intake process. Making sure that all of those housing case managers have training to be able to continue doing their work. A one-stop shop housing access fair in April for folks who are looking for housing to be able to move through the process more quickly. And one thing that we're looking forward to seeing is a workforce development pilot program, which would basically help, it's going to qualify several providers to then train folks who have experienced homelessness to be peer support and other specialists to be able to move them through the process. So again, I know a lot of you are on the ground in Washington County. I'm wondering, what did I miss? What else is happening that you all have seen? Well, I guess I was comprehensive. That's fantastic. Right.
So, Cole, thank you. You did a great job sharing the accomplishments of Washington County. I'm really proud of the partnerships with our community-based organizations, the contracting like you talked about, and the progress that we've made. I know, it feels slow sometimes, but it is amazing. So I'll say I'm really proud of the staff and the community and the support that we've received from our board. So, but thank you for putting together this beautiful presentation and doing such a nice job. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course. Marcia, I haven't seen you for a bit. It's good to see you.
Hi, Cole. How you doing?
Wow.
I just wanted to add to the conversation about the now the availability of shelter beds. We serve a number of clients with a serious mental illness who are homeless. And I think I've said this before to some of you, I don't nearly see as many people sleeping in front of my door when I get to work in the morning as I used to. So still happens. We've got a lot of work to do to get those folks housed permanently, but just the availability of shelters has supplied a much needed resource that I just very grateful for. So
Awesome. Rowie, it's good to see you. What's been going on in Washington County?
Well, thank you, first of all, for your presentation. That video is powerful. It's really, really good to see. But one of the things that's not captured in that video that I think for Washington County really does need to be mentioned is the incredible spirit and collaboration that takes place here. There's been lots of changes at the county level, in the housing department, lots of changes at community action, and the community of providers, and it's just collaborative. Everybody works together really well, and I think that really needs some mention because it doesn't happen this way in lots of other places.
Yeah. And Kimberly, what's on your mind?
Well, I have to reiterate, it was a fantastic presentation. And I just wanted to, I love the multifaceted approach that you're taking. Something that I'd like to insert into the equation is preventing people from being homeless. Oftentimes that requires some critical home repairs if they're living in their own home and aging in place. So providing that access, obviously, this doesn't fit all of the rubric in your plan, but it's something to keep in mind as we move forward. Habitat is working on fortifying our critical home repair program. We do about 85 houses a year, but we want to be doing more of that as well. And I think that you'd be able to find a lot of partners in that.
Great. Thank you. Let's go with Brian, and then I still do have just a couple more slides to wrap us up.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight the county's landlord incentive program. That's proven to be a game changer to motivate landlords to accept participants into their units. So thanks to county for motivating that program.
So Bruce, let's go with you, and then I'll have just a couple more slides.
Okay, just quickly, I'm curious if anybody has any experience with either the Beaverton or the Hillsborough Mediation Department working on landlord-tenant eviction mediations.
Wondering if maybe we could hold that until the Q&A at the end. That's a great question and a great point.
Okay.
So look, I'm HereTogether at the core is also an advocacy coalition. So I want to note just a little bit of the advocacy that we're focusing on and the work that's ahead. So I'll run through these pretty quickly. But first of all, let's talk a little bit about where we need to be really keeping our focus. Regional long-term rent assistance. And I think this is very similar to the landlord mediation, because we have a game-changing opportunity with a local voucher to leverage both our public and our private market to create long-term and deeply affordable housing. Public market through affordable housing funds and bond projects that are coming online and creating vouchers for those units. Private for tenants to be able to take vouchers to a private landlord and have it paid for, I think, up to 150% of fair market rent. So really being able to bring more folks into the community and into housing. But ultimately, if we're going to do that, we need to make sure that landlords are ready to participate, understand their responsibilities, understand landlord-tenant laws, and also that we have the resources for them, whether it's a risk mitigation pool or floating behavioral health services and support to make sure that they have the support that they need to be able to make sure that these tenants can stay there long term. So we're keeping a close eye on this as the counties roll out ARLA. Workforce, something that you all are very closely monitoring. We are as well. Look, we need living wage compensation for case managers, peer support specialists, and other frontline workers. We need it to recruit, retain, and close the racial wage gap. And I think one of the challenges that we also need to see is that this can't just be through supportive housing services. This needs to be through all program areas, because you can get to a major gap where SHS is the new funding and there's ample amounts of it that can hire a new case manager at a higher level than the other folks who are getting funded through other contracts. So this really needs to be something that our county and regional partners are really focusing on across the board. Regional data coordination. We need to get a comprehensive person-centered understanding of who's homeless and why on a monthly basis. That will lead to better care coordination, better dashboards so the public understands how well we're doing, what our progress is, what inflow looks like, what outflow looks like, and regional coordination. So Washington County's been a great proponent for Built for Zero. We now have seen that Multnomah and Clackamas have enrolled as well in BFC. And the Here Together Coalition is working both to ensure that this gets implemented regionally, but beyond that, that the providers on the ground who aren't necessarily entirely sure about this whole Built for Zero thing or how it works or how it will impact their work on a daily basis are informed, engaged, bought in, so that we can really have a system that really does continuous improvement. So seeing Built for Zero implemented is a major advocacy platform for Here Together. And the Tri-County Planning Body. I won't take too much time on this, but just I will note that Metro has seated the TCPD. It is a regional body of, I think, 15 people plus 4 elected officials that Here Together Coalition outlined in the ballot measure. It gets 5% of the measure's funding, and it is entirely focused on creating a regional plan to address homelessness. So we see it as a vehicle for systems change and making sure that we're bringing all of the other systems that are interfacing and impacting homelessness, from healthcare to criminal justice to foster care, all to the table. We're really excited about who's been appointed to it, and we will continue to build relationships to ensure that it reaches its full potential. And finally, narrative change. Look, our communications are now more important than ever. And I want to touch really briefly on the threat that we recently faced from People for Portland. I think many of you know People for Portland is a advocacy political action committee, or I'm sorry, not even a PAC, they're a C4 that has focused on churning the base of their followers to believe that nothing's happening fast enough, that homelessness has gotten out of control, and that it's all at the fault of elected officials who just haven't waved their magic wand and had the political will to get it done. At the end of the day, we can talk all about how that is a strategy that is only meant to make people angry and not actually meant to dig in to do the work to really solve the issue. And at the end of the day, the way that they have framed it means that a lot of the public is on board in believing their message. So in March through May, we were successful, along with all 3 counties and Metro, in fending off a ballot measure and attempt that they put together that would have redirected 75% of the funding for supportive housing services to shelter only. While we were successful in getting a judge to reject that, the work that they have done means that the public is no longer necessarily on our side when it comes to the myriad ways we know that we need to work to tackle homelessness. Everything from case management to supportive housing to supportive services. And so ultimately, the way that we can combat that, the way that we can counteract that narrative, is by putting out really clear messaging that shows the work that's been happening now. And frankly, that's something that I need help from all of you to do. HereTogether is really focusing on finding a niche in storytelling, because there are, as Kemp said, so many amazing stories that are happening on a daily basis. So we've been working with our coalition to build out monthly communications platform and trainings, everything from how to take a good iPhone video to next month, we're going to be having a media training to make sure that folks really feel comfortable with all of the aspects of communications and how they can do it. We're also working on telling the individual stories that are happening now. And for those of you who are case managers or working with case managers, I would love to talk with you, because we have a stipend program built in where we could actually work with you to help tell those stories and compensate both the case manager who's helping work with the participant and the participant themselves, especially as folks are getting into housing, especially as folks are getting into shelter, especially as folks are moving forward. This is how we keep the public on our side for solutions that we know work. Together, we can shift the narrative. And I will drop some information in the chat box. I would love for y'all to sign up for our Happening Now newsletter. And if you'd like to talk about some of that storytelling, I'm going to put my email as well as our communications manager's email. Glenn, I was not monitoring the chat, so if there is anything that I missed as far as questions, please please let me know.
I think you're good. There's been some comments and links that people are providing that hopefully are complementing what you shared. So thank you for that, Cole.
Yes.
I don't know, Bruce, we're running a little short on time for this segment. I'm not sure if anybody has a quick response to Bruce's question regarding tenant-landlord mediation for Beaverton and Hillsborough. Perhaps you can put that in the chat. Bruce, would that be?
That's fine. That's fine. I think it's a critical function that I'm hoping is being incorporated in this whole thing.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thanks, Cole. That was a lot of excellent information. I think there are some questions that I have in my mind, but I do want to give ourselves some time in this last half hour to talk about the Behavioral Health Workforce Initiative. And Cole did allude to the fact that there's the wage, the equitable wage, the living wage conversation is a big one. And it's true not only for those who are in the housing and supportive services, but as you mentioned, there's this large chunk of funds now that we're using. And for the first time, there are people who are case managers in housing that are getting paid a living wage. But that's not necessarily true for others who are in the supportive services sector that are providing those other wraparound services for people who are being housed. And an example of that would be in our behavioral health sector. So folks who are residential support staff and others providing some navigation and support of people in, who are struggling with behavioral health issues, mental health, addiction, et cetera. That is a significant problem. And as you may recall from our last quarterly gathering, we agreed that the summit that had taken place in March around behavioral health workforce, that the issue itself was a worthy one for us to embrace as a collaborative. And since that summit, Van has been working with the main providers of behavioral health services, those being Marsha's group at Sequoia Mental Health, Mary Monnett's group at LifeWorks Northwest, and Julie Ibrahim's group at New Narrative, which used to be called Lukedorf, for those of you who aren't familiar with the new name. And we are also collaborating with Work Systems, which is our regional workforce development funding agent, if you will. And you may recall from the summit, we had identified 4 broad focus areas. And one of those was to shore up the gaps currently that exist in the workforce itself. And that was considered the highest priority for the 3 providers. So Van has been working with the providers and with Work Systems, and we're currently developing a recruitment and training program to increase their level of staffing at that residential support, in that position of residential support staff. Each of them might call it something different, but it's essentially a person who is either working at a residential treatment facility that has 6 or more clients, or a house that has 5 or fewer clients. And so the work we're doing with staff is to develop essentially a universal job description and recruitment plan and onboarding program that each of the providers will be able to leverage. And I think one of the great things about this, and one of the testaments to our community-based organizations here in Washington County, is that we're willing to collaborate. They're sharing information about what they're paying their staff. They're sharing the job descriptions that they use. They're talking about how they've been recruiting, how they train and onboard, the retention problems that they have, sometimes losing close to 50% of new hires within 30 days. So real challenges. And all of this is being done in an open and transparent format, so that we can learn from each other, and so that we can work together to solve this problem. And the old saying, the rising tide lifts all boats. That's our goal, is by developing a plan that each of them can work with in terms of the training and onboarding, and also a strategy for turning over rocks that haven't been turned over yet, to look for those diamonds in the rough. I don't know, that's a mixed metaphor, but to try to find people in places where they haven't yet looked. That could be faith communities. It could be folks who are semi-retired or permanently retired and are simply looking for a part-time gig and would be very happy to contribute in their community by providing this kind of service, and are happy to get paid for it. We're even considering volunteer opportunities where it's appropriate, where people can volunteer, and sharing staff. I mean, there's just creative ideas that are being floated around to try to address this issue. So that's what we're calling phase 1 for this workforce initiative. And I'm going to just pause there for a moment. If there's anybody who has either a question, a comment, I want to give you the opportunity to do that right now. Bridget, please. And I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself.
Oh gosh, it's been a while since I did that. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. And also I want to thank Cole as well. I think it's really important, the messaging, and I'd really like to work on helping elevate that within the city government arena. So to talk about that, I think it's just really important to have those facts and figures and to figure out what we're going to talk about. As far as workforce development, I myself am a former LCSW that stopped practicing. And I'm just curious, if I don't want to practice, to keep all my CEUs going, to keep my education going so that I can contribute. Like if somebody wanted me to contribute, I'd be happy to jump in and do do some things for people. But the barrier to licensure, the expense, if you're not practicing, and I do so much volunteer work that I don't have, so I just think there's some really stellar people that are probably around my age that may have put in decades of LCSW work, watch things diminish as we were practicing, and the resources that we had to serve people go away. And then, but have a lot of wisdom to share and have some skills to share. So I'm just curious if there's a way that you're working around those licensure requirements for people that would jump back into pinch hit, as you said.
I think that's a great point that you make, Bridget. We haven't focused a discussion on that in particular, but that's clearly a barrier, but it presents an opportunity if there's a way that we can remove that barrier.
Yeah.
And in these particular situations, this is one of the reasons why I think this collaborative is powerful, because we've got wisdom and experience that we can draw from in this group that will help us address this problem in a more effective way. And so, one of the things I wanted to make sure folks understand is that as we continue to move forward on this journey, this is that phase one. It's a very focused effort, but I want to invite your participation, and we will work to try to figure out where we can plug you in and when is appropriate to plug you in to help with this. And just raising that issue, Bridget, is one thing that's going to, now Marcia, we're on notice here. There's a barrier that if we can figure out some way to overcome that barrier, you may increase the opportunity to recruit some additional staff. So I think there's a real benefit to focusing some efforts on that. So thanks, Bridget.
You bet. I'm happy to be your guinea pig too, if you.
Excellent. All right. Good
right.
to know. You're on record as saying such. Marcia, what have you got to share, please?
Yeah, I just wanted to, for a minute, go back to something Cole said. The issue of other payers not paying a living wage. And so when SHS does so, which is great, we face tremendous issues with equity within our workforce. I am pleased to say, and I wanted to call out HealthShare and Care Oregon in particular, who are our primary funders for Medicaid dollars. They've done a lot in the last year to improve that situation. So I think the increased emphasis on behavioral health is starting to pay off for us. So I think I just wanted to call them out. It's been a significant change. We need more, but it's improved. And back to what Bridget said, that's a great offer. The reality is a licensed clinician would be wonderful. However, there are needs at so many different levels for peers, for people with bachelor's degrees, master's degrees who don't have a license. So there's lots of opportunities without even having to deal with the license, which certainly we should look at, but there's lots of opportunities otherwise as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Marcia. Begonia, please.
Yeah, so I just need clarification about, are we discussing about short-term or long-term strategies, or is this going to be a hybrid, a little bit of everything? Because I'm thinking about the future generation, so it makes sense that we are planting the seed through the CTE programs, through the Oregon Department of Education. But I'm also thinking about programs that when I was living in Georgia, the teachers were actually, their master's degree were paid with the agreement that they will work for 2 years in the most underserved school districts in Georgia, very rural. And I wonder if there is something like that that we could replicate, or at least look at different models existing in other states.
Yeah, great question, Begonia. Thank you. I do believe there is, and as a matter of fact, I haven't looked into the details, but I received an email yesterday regarding a debt relief program that is available. It's something that people have to apply for, but that is one of the tools in the tool chest that we are going to look at and see how we can incorporate that for not only existing staff, but potentially as a benefit for people who are considering a position, a new position in this field. Molly.
Thanks. So living wages for behavioral health is something that's close to my heart, and for peer-delivered services. So I'm interested in bringing peer-delivered services to the table, and making sure that the voice of lived experience is there. And like, this is really the work that I'm interested in, is supporting the peer workforce and really advancing the peer workforce. So I would love to be in any conversation surrounding behavioral health and workforce support. I have a lot of ideas.
Wonderful. Thank you. We appreciate that. And we will make sure to tap you. Adrian.
That was merely a thumbs up, indicating my validation and excitement for what Molly is doing. She's really doing some fantastic work. So not a hand. Thank you.
Good. All right. Thanks very much. Anyone else? Questions or comments on this particular topic? I will add in my response to Begonia, this focused effort is certainly near term. We're trying to identify what is it in the midterm and the long term that we should be doing. We foresee this, just like any initiative that thrives as a collaborative has taken on. They aren't problems that are solved overnight. We anticipate taking a deeper dive. And the question always remains, what resources do we bring to bear to keep moving this forward, for VAN to continue to convene and facilitate around these topics, to kind of coordinate, connect the dots, as it were, bring in stakeholders who haven't been at the table, et cetera. So our hope, and VAN's working hard, Ally is trying to drum up some additional funding so that we can continue to be at the table and support this collaborative effort. And we appreciate everyone who's offering to contribute in some way, shape, or form. So thank you for that. Next up, Kemp, and then Bruce.
Thanks, Glenn. Yeah, I just wanted to note, I think listening to the conversation around the challenges of behavioral health and the questions of wages, Cole and Marcia both hit on it. I think for employers with multiple funding streams, that's a huge challenge we always will face, and that equity internally is a big challenge. That's the reality of what we have to manage, but it does create morale issues potentially in our own workforce when one group potentially has resources that another doesn't to do the same job. That being said, it also just reminds me, or just makes me reflect on kind of the value and importance of the Thrives, this group, and our focus, not just on workforce development, but to continue to stay focused on affordable housing, both the services that are paired with it, but the continued investment and development of that, as well as early learning opportunities. When we look at those big chunks of somebody's, where people's income goes, it's particularly working families, it's going to housing, and it's going to childcare. Those things are pretty similar in costs. And so as much progress as we can make on raising wages, also making progress on reducing costs that people have to bear to live in Washington County is the other side of the coin we don't want to lose sight of. And I value that. That's part of the value of this group, that we see that holistically. So just an observation.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, Kemp. Thank you. Bruce.
Thanks. I have two things. A little thing. Several groups that I'm in have started putting a copy of the chat from the Zoom meetings into the minutes of the meeting. And I'm hoping that you can do that, because there's a lot of good information. You even edit the chat just a little bit for the salient points, but it helps capture the various bits of information and contact. The other is just briefly, I'm not sure that the widespread population really understands what mental health is. And we talk about so many aspects of dealing with mental health, but there's no talking common understanding of what it is, in my experience. And if we define mental health is the ability to distinguish between what the hardscape reality is versus what reality or reality TV is. There's a lot of people who can't distinguish between made up fact sets and what is actually true. There's a whole conservative world that operates on made up facts. And so a campaign in the county to help people grapple with their own analysis of what is my mental health level? Can I distinguish reality from unreality? Might be a useful tool to offer the population at large. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Bruce. Bishop Germain.
Yeah, so it's just a comment that I think Marcia and a few others were making in the chat. And as a life coach and a counselor, it was something that has been on my radar about the funding for behavioral health, and how Marcia had mentioned that a lot of it is underfunded. And we really do, and I think it's something that we do stress here at this meeting and conference, but I just want to kind of reiterate that it is needed. You know, funding is needed to actually push a lot of these programs forward. A lot of the psychiatrists, and even as Bruce mentioned, the people and the cohorts that we talk to, we do want to stress how important that is. That if we don't teach them and they really don't have that area of learning, they're really hanging high and dry, you know, and I think that's a real thing. It's a real case. And so, and I've seen that personally in a lot of the cases that I've dealt with over the past 2 to 3 years currently, even facing it now. It's a hard thing. And so I think really understanding that funding really is needed. And I think that funding is coming. I think once you mentioned about collaborating and really working together, and I do agree with you about rising the tide, you know, and really understanding that progress. So I think we're doing it, but I just want to stress that.
Thank you, Bishop. I will share that in regards to funding, there is a current funding opportunity and a request for proposals that Van is taking a serious look at and hoping to submit along with some of our community-based partners. And it is specifically focused on behavioral health and capacity building for workforce. So it is, you may have noticed a slide that Cole showed where we had a $50,000 grant from Washington County to do some capacity building for 4 organizations. The state is providing $9.8 million for capacity building. Of course, it is across the state, but a large chunk of that is expected to be in the Portland metro area because of our population base and because of the infrastructure we have here. So we are exploring that opportunity. There are people here in this room whose organizations I have reached out to, but if I haven't reached out to yours, and if you are an organization that has an interest in partnering on developing your capacity to provide services around workforce development in this sector, then I would like to speak with you. And obviously we're still trying to form this team. We're trying to figure out who are the appropriate players, who has the ability to develop capacity. And so would love to hear from folks. If you're at all interested in learning more about that, you can contact Allie, Jenny, me, any of us, because we're working together on it. Other questions or comments? And Allie and Jenny, if I have missed any detail that you think is important for us to share, please feel free to chime in.
Glenn, someone had a question about the upcoming heat wave they wanted to chat with the group about for a minute.
Sure. And before we get to that, let's make sure we've covered all our bases on this particular topic, and then we will address Kelsey's question. So Kelsey, or have you got something related to the behavioral health topic? Okay. Bridget, is yours behavioral health topic related? Feel free.
Okay, my other thing about, especially from my experience, long time of being a social worker and working in clinical work, and being also an advocate for the NASW, for instance, the advocacy team, we would go often to support teachers unions, nurses unions, but never have our own behavioral health covered. So the other piece around this is what happens to people that do all this service focused work when it's time for them to retire. You know, when I think about leadership development, mentorship for all the peer people, people that want to increase their education, that want to share their lived experience, how are we being responsible to those workers as they age, as they move through their careers in a way that values them and empowers them rather than leaves them vulnerable to gain the same services that they've been providing for all these years. So I just want to, you know, be mindful of what we're doing, how we're recruiting people, where we're taking people, how competent the services are they evidence-based, or are these, you know, well-meaning people and that might or might not be effective. And so those are my, you know, I'm really very, very interested in competent. And then this particular population is so complex. We've broken it up into all these different pieces, but that's so interesting, you know, trying to have an integrative approach. There needs to be people at a certain point in the system that understand the whole thing in an integrative way with all the pieces that can help support all the different other support staff. So I just want to say my 2 cents on that. Thank you.
That was $2 and it was well worth it. So thank you. Yeah, we're absolutely wanting to look at the systemic issues, the broader landscape of this problem, because it's not just this very focused effort that we're currently engaged in.
No, and I'll tell you, I came here from, I went to school at Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan. There's more robust systems and behavioral health there. It's just a very, very different landscape and a very different place to practice. And so I'm encouraged that we're looking at this like this. And then I know Oregon, we're famous for pilot programs. So I'm excited to see what we're innovative around.
There you go. Thank you. I think Kelsey might have had to jump off, but he did put in the chat a link around the issue of, you know, if we're going to have a heat wave next week, what are we doing about it? So we will be sharing the chat. Oh, are you still? Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Kelsey.
I have a minute. Yeah, I'm sure everybody knows next week we have 4 days that are over 100 degrees or over. Friday's 96 degrees. So we're sending out resources to all of our partner agencies, like operating in excessive heat procedures. We're going to be providing water and also just resources in general for folks who need to close and operational support. So yeah, just, and you know, I'm sure everyone's aware of the Washington County excessive heat procedure link I put in the chat, but just wanted to connect to see if anyone else has any other resources or news about that.
Thank you, Kelsey. Anyone have something quick to add in these last few moments? Feel free to put something in the chat if you've got it. All right. I like to try to end us on time, if not a little early. Thanks, Kelsey. See you later. Appreciate everyone who's been able to stay with us for the duration. Again, next quarterly gathering is October 19 at 8:30 if you're not on the Thrives email list, you might want to consider adding yourself to that. You can go to visionactionnetwork.org. I think you scroll down on our first page, I believe, and you can put your email address in and select Thrives as one of the lists that you'd like to get updates from. But we will provide the presentation that Cole had. We'll provide the text exchange that's gone in the chat. So much information there. It's great. And then the link to the recording. All of that will be available later on this week. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for all that you do. I appreciate you. Look forward to seeing you again and crossing paths sometime in the near future. Have a great rest of your day. Be well. Bye-bye.